I can't do this. I absolutely can't do this. I'm in such a bad place. Everything is going horribly wrong.
Do I want my children to see me drinking wine every time I have lunch or dinner with them?
I am so anxious. I don't know what to do. And
you end up fighting with your husband, fighting with your friend.
And then you see a photo of yourself the next day and you're like, wow, this is me. Oh my God.
Trudy, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just don't drink today. Welcome to the She Word, conversations that women rarely have, but really should. And I think everyone has heard of dry January. Christmas is over and the partying has come to an end, and taking a break from drinking is quite a common occurrence. In 2024, 27% of adults aged 21 and over said they were very likely to participate in dry January, and 25% completed the challenge. And there's been quite a trend that's been growing significantly in recent years, and that is the sober, curious culture. But the sober, curious culture is not just a fleeting trend. It's a shift in the way people and generations are interacting with and thinking about alcohol use. Sober curious simply means that you've chosen to avoid alcohol for personal or wellness reasons. And if you're a non-drinker, you are in some very good company with some very well-known sober celebrities. Jamie Lee Curtis, Blake Lively, Drew Barrymore, Naomi Campbell, Eva Mendes, Kelly Osbourne, Lana Del Rey, Tom Holland, Bradley Cooper, Anthony Hopkins, Eminem, Robert Downey Jr., Calvin Harris, Daniel Radcliffe, Ewan McGregor, and Tom Hardy. All are sober. Sobriety isn't necessarily for everyone. I read a quote recently that said, "I'm not preaching that anyone else should stop drinking. I just know that I am better without alcohol. And for very personal reasons, I joined this trend last July. So I really want to talk about this. And I've got three amazing women who are here also on the sobriety path. Ladies, welcome.
thank you.
Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. And first of all, I'm going to say chin chin. With a non-alcoholic cocktail, obviously.
Cheers.
So cheers. Oh, that big stretch across the table.
Sorry, I can't reach you.
It's all right.
Absolutely fine. Melissa, you are no stranger to the She Word. In fact, you kind of taken up residence on the show. And you're going to be on the She Word twice this month.
Yes.
And I'm really glad that you're here. But one of the reasons that you're on this show is that this show wouldn't exist without you, because we've had this conversation for a very, very long time. And I'm really excited to be sitting down and talking about this sober, curious culture right now with you. This has been a long time coming. May Barrett. Hello, May.
Hi.
You're back for the second time.
Yes.
Because you were with me here on this table talking about addiction. And in that show, you were insanely honest, talking about smoking, about alcohol, and the fact that you have, and today, not been drinking for 2.5 years, exactly today.
Exactly today.
That is amazing. So I'm going to get you to fill in the gaps in just a second. Hello.
Hello.
Therese, it's your first time.
Yes, it is.
Therese, it's so good to have you. Therese Galia, off this island, as people will know you on social media. Now, we've had a conversation about this whole sober, curious culture as well, and you're coming from it from a very, very different point of view, because you're part of that sober, curious culture that's reevaluating alcohol and the relationship that we have with alcohol. But I'm going to stick with you for a second, because I'll let these ladies have a word in a moment. But tell me a little bit more about you, Therese, and your relationship with alcohol and why you're on this show.
Okay, so basically, like possibly every other girl, I had my first drink when I was relatively young, right, around 16. And I've been drinking socially mostly from that period. I've been pregnant before, and of course, during pregnancy, you stop doing things which you usually do. And you start questioning why you can stop doing it for 9 whole months and possibly a bit more if you're breastfeeding, but then you go again to drinking socially in events, at home, for the rest of your time, sort of. So I was wondering whether I should actually start thinking about it, be a bit more mindful about it, and start questioning why we actually drink, or why I actually drink, rather than just drink because everyone else is drinking. So
See, I love this because this is a perspective. This is probably what a lot of people will relate to. And we're going to come to that whole reason why we drink. May, fill in the details because, like I say, you were on the Women in Addiction show and very, very open about alcohol, but you don't drink.
No, exactly today, 2.5 years sober. I chose to stop drinking altogether because I just noticed that it's become a bit of a habit at that time. And I just felt that it's taking away from my life rather than giving anything. And I did it mostly for health and wellness reasons. Also probably for like looking into the future, just saying, do I want to be this person in the future? And for me, it was a clear no. So I stopped from one day to the next.
Well, we're going to dive into that as well, but a little bit more about you. You also have a degree in psychology and
Yes.
you're a life coach.
Yes, I'm an empowerment coach for women because for me, empowerment is also about choices and awareness. So when you're aware about something, you have the choice to change something. And that goes really well with that choosing to not drink or choosing to drink.
Fantastic. Well, okay, that leads me on to Melissa. Melissa, you don't drink either.
No. So I stopped around 2021 in May. So it's almost 4 years that I've been alcohol free. I choose that term rather than sober. And I stopped for many reasons. But first off, I just wanted to stop because of health, but not health in the physical aspect, more because of my mental health. My mental health struggled so much when drinking. I suffer naturally from anxiety quite a bit, but my anxiety would peak as soon as Monday comes. And I never used to drink excessively or, every single day, but I would suffer from anxiety so much to the point where it felt like it was debilitating. I would not want to get up. So I think they actually call that anxiety. So you have a hangover with anxiety. So, and I just knew that it wasn't good for me at that point. My twins were not even 1 year old anymore. And same as May, I just questioned whether this is the type of person that I want to be, where I'm very focused. I've been focused on health for at least the last decade to 12 years. And why do I care so much about the food that I put into my body, but I don't care about, drinking alcohol and what it actually does to my mind? Because my mind is the thing that really, really suffered.
Well, this is really interesting. We're going to dive into all of this, but I want to sort of start off the show by saying this is not a preachy show about, you should stop drinking and that we're recommending this for everybody. This is what is right for us on this table at this time. But I know that a lot of people are considering it. And I want to share my story of why I'm at the table, and then I want to ask you guys to jump in. But before I do that, I want to share a few statistics. And interestingly, in 2024, 59% of Gen Zers in Britain, that's born from 1997 and onwards, over the age of 18, claim to have not consumed any alcoholic drinks in the previous 12 months. 59% of Gen Zers in the UK. That was, for me, was astonishing, making them 49% more likely than the average adult to abstain from drinking. This figure has been rising steadily over recent years. Other generations have seen rises in proportion claiming not to drink. For example, 49% of millennials claim not to drink, as do 35% of Gen X, which is where I'm at, and 25% of baby boomers. Now, I'm British, and I grew up in a very active drinking culture. And the binge culture was really part of that because pub culture is a big thing in the UK. So you'd go to the pub at lunchtime, you'd have something to eat, a pie and a pint, and then after work you would socialise in the pub. And because of the way that it was when I was growing up, you'd go to the pub after work and the the closing, the last orders was at about 10:30. So you had a very finite amount of time that you could drink. So in the UK, when I was growing up, Gen X, there was okay, let's drink as much as we can between here and here. So the binge drinking was a thing even before there was a term binge drinking. But that led me to sort of, I suppose, a 30-year relationship with alcohol, which I would say only now I'm understanding wasn't very healthy. And I understand it now because I don't drink. And I think that's incredibly important. And before making my decision to not drink in July, the longest I'd abstained from alcohol was probably about 4 weeks. I mean, that for 30 years, I'd only gone without alcohol for 4 weeks. I mean, that is quite a big deal. But in July, we were facing some huge changes. My husband was moving back from Prague. We'd been living in Prague. He'd been living in Prague, and I'd been coming up and down. And we had some huge changes in our life. I decided in June that I was going to stop drinking Red Bull, which I'd been drinking for 12 years. But we moved back to Malta. He came back, and we were resettling in Malta permanently. And things were very uncertain. Things were very unsettled and uncertain. And I remember at the time, we had, obviously, as we were leaving Prague, we had probably about 6 weeks of farewell drinks. And because with different people and celebrating this, it was my 50th birthday. So, of course, that was celebrated and this was celebrated. And then over the course of 6 weeks, it was over and over again. It started to become quite thin. And then my dear friend, Danae Mercer-Ritchie, who is an influencer, we've met Danae, she's incredible. When she came to Malta, she put out a challenge and said, I'm going to stop drinking until November. Who's with me? And I, at this point, was like, okay, Trudy, you've really been drinking probably if not every day, almost every day for a 6-week period. Maybe you should think about this. And I kind of was in my head, and I said, yeah, I really want to do that. And I really want to join her. And I really want to sign up to that, but things were really, really tough at the time. So I came back to Malta, and we ended up moving to Gozo. And we moved back to Gozo. We relocated to an apartment that we had just acquired, and my husband went off to Tunisia for 2 weeks. And the apartment had no AC, it had no insulation, it had no water, no gas, nothing. And I was in a really, really bad way and not enjoying life at all. And you, Melissa, said to me, I'm going to come over and take you for lunch. Do you remember? And I'm going to cry. And the day that we were going to meet for lunch was a Wednesday, and it was the Wednesday before the festa started in Arla. And I took my dog out for a walk that morning, and at 5 to 8, the fireworks kicked off, and my dog freaked. My dog freaked, and then I freaked. And I was just like, this is not good. And I hid in this print shop in Arla, and the gentleman let me hide there, and I called my husband. I said, I can't do this. I absolutely can't do this. I am in such a bad place. Everything is going horribly wrong. And I came back and I called you and I said, listen, I'm not having a good day. You said, I'm coming anyway. But I remember that before 9 o'clock in the morning, I'd already poured myself 2 large whiskies, neat, because I didn't know how to cope. I was really struggling. And when you've drunk, and then I had a couple more, and when you've drunk neat whiskey before, not even before midday, before 10 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know if you know, when you came to pick me up, I was quite pissed.
No, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
I really, you actually
I was, yeah.
put on a big,
Hey,
good,
thanks.
Yeah, good poker
But
face.
you came to pick me up, and we went for lunch, and I was not sober. And
You didn't drink at lunch, though.
I had 1 glass of Prosecco.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, because I'd been drinking whiskey in the morning. And I'm telling the story because I have a feeling that that there may be women, there may be people that want to understand how this is. When time comes, when things get really tough and you're really facing really bad, challenging times, pour yourself a drink, whether it's 9 o'clock in the morning or whether it's 10 o'clock at night, whatever it is. And I had to make a choice right there. My husband was hundreds of miles away, and I had to make a choice about how this summer was going to be. I was either going to spend it completely and utterly drunk, or I was going to make a choice on that day. And you came along with your joy and, like Melissa does. And I said to you, I have to stop drinking. And you had been saying to me for a while, this is a life that, and so after lunch, I contacted Danae, I messaged Danae and said, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop drinking till November, because I knew that the summer would just be a disaster. Things were so, so tough. So that's why I stopped drinking last July. That's my story. That's how I came to it. And we all have our stories. And I think I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to be a bit impertinent, and I'm going to ask you, what made you make that choice? What was that decision?
I think for me, it was similar to what Melissa said before. Like, I was living a healthy life. I've been vegan since 2019. I'm a yoga teacher of 8+ years. I'm like meditation and mindfulness teacher. And then I'm like there drinking my wine to relax. It kind of felt like a bit hypocritical and strange at the same time. Like, I'm so preachy about so many things, and I'm like a teacher of so many things, and I'm not taking my own advice. I'm like, yeah, I know meditation, but when I'm stressed, I just drink because that's easier. When I have anxiety, I just drink. And it's been my grudge for a very long time, especially with anxiety, with stressful periods in life, like you said. It's just been there always. I started drinking very early, like 13 years of age. And as you said too, I grew up in a culture where alcohol is very everywhere. Like, I'm German, so everybody knows Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
I'm not from Bavaria, but it's kind of the cultural vibe across the country. We even have this tradition which is called Feierabendbier. Basically translates to celebratory beer after work.
Oh.
And like everybody does it. You come home and you have a beer.
Yep.
Especially men do it. It's like a long day's work. You come home, you have a beer. So I grew up with my dad doing Feierabendbier, and his uncle, like his brothers, my uncles, other male family, everybody. It's like so culture. But back to why I stopped. Mainly what I said. And I just felt it's time to face myself, to face my emotions, to face this anxiety, and to live by what I preach, basically, and use healthy methods of coping rather than just drowning all the problems out.
But you know that happened 2.5 years ago today. So
Yes.
was there like a day you got up and said, for me, it was the realization that unless I stopped drinking, my summer was going to be gone. Because that was so strongly my coping mechanism. Was there a moment 2.5 years ago when you said, okay, this is the last drink I'm going to have, or a
I
decision?
think for me it was kind of the start of a new period of my life, because I had been traveling for 1.5 years with no home. So I just lived out of a backpack for 1.5 years. And I came back to Malta because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And it felt like a new start. So I was like, yeah, okay, this is a new start. I'm going to figure my life out. Like, what do I want to do? Where do I want to be? Who do I want to be? And that was part of it, yeah.
Okay. For you, how long have you not been drinking?
Almost 4 years.
Okay. But you know the day.
I don't know the exact day, but I know it was the first week of May.
Okay.
That I know. The reason why I stopped, or why I got to a point where I wanted to stop, I think it was just a accumulation of so many years. So I also started drinking when I was like 14. So I was also quite young, but it definitely escalated. I would say by the age of 15, we were drinking every weekend. That's just what we did as kids. Like, you would go to someone's house whose parents aren't there, go and drink, and you would drink cheap booze and you would get very sick. And I think the reason why I started drinking in the first place when I was in high school was I was a bit of the nerdy kid in primary school. So when I got to high school, that was almost my way of showing, like, I am the cool chick, which is not the truth at all. But my point is that's why I think I started. And then obviously when you get to your 20s and you're on college and stuff, it just becomes more and more and more. But then by the time that I had my kids, I definitely wasn't drinking a lot. My issue was never that I actually looked at alcohol as a coping mechanism. I have never drank on my own. I don't think I've ever had a drink on my own. No, I've never had a drink on my own. To me, alcohol always was a social thing, and for me to relax in social gatherings, and because everyone else does it as well. My problem was I didn't know when to stop. So I would enjoy that first drink. Oh, that first drink tastes like the second drink. And then the second drink tastes like the third drink. And it would just not stop. I would be the one up until 6 a.m. because I don't want the good time to end when everyone else has already gone to bed. So my issue was always that. And then I can go for another month without drinking. So the reason why I stopped was because at that point I was a mom of 3 kids and they were young kids. And to throw twins into the mix, you need to be there and you need to be present. And I think I just really went through a very big health kick as well. And I was like, I don't want my mind to be all messed up. I don't want my body to be messed up. I just want to be me. So.
Have you ever had a point where you just said, that's it, I'm not going to drink?
No, not yet. But I'm thinking about it. It's like, as Melissa said, it's like society encourages you to drink, right? There's no way, like going to a festa and like everyone's offering you drinks. Come on, let me buy you a drink. It's like, even if you're like, no, it's okay, I'm fine, I'm on water. People want you to drink. So it's like you feel the pressure to drink, even if you're like thinking about not drinking alcohol. Unlike Melissa, actually, I've had a couple of, I've poured myself a couple of wine glasses, right? So like a glass every evening after a very full and busy day, where you feel like your world's going to fall apart and you're not handling it well, right? But it's only a glass, so I've never had, I think, a problem with like drinking a full bottle of wine. Like, I know I'm having a glass of wine and that's it. But then I start questioning, why should I be having that glass of wine? Like, in the evenings, like I can unwind without having wine. So, and then you start being mindful and start analyzing why you do it. And usually it's just because you don't want to think about how the whole day went and you just want to forget for a little bit. And it's that time when you actually forget.
Take care and enjoy healthy skin. Browns, empowering wellness through a selection of dermo-cosmetic brands ideal for the whole family.
Ideal Standard, celebrating 90 years of success in the local market, exclusively from Satariano.
Something about the way you bounce makes me want to keep you around my mind, my mind. Something about the way you sound shakes me up and makes me get down on my.
See, that's really interesting because Mariella Demek, I remember on a show that she was on way back, I think it was even season 1 or season 2, and she said that alcohol, drugs, and any substance is a quick way. It's a shortcut to get to a relaxed state without going through the process of dealing with the emotions.
Exactly, you're not dealing with it. Right?
Exactly. And I want to come back to something that you said just back there, Melissa, because we have 2 contrasts here.
Yeah.
Because you're saying I can have 1 glass of wine. Drew Barrymore, I saw this quote from her. She said, drinking doesn't work for me. I am never going to be the cool girl with a glass of wine at the party. I want 3 bottles. that's my personality. And when finally, you're Drew? I'm in the Drew. I'm in the Drew.
I'm definitely Drew.
Oh, we got Drew. Cool girl. There's us three.
No, I don't speak cool at all.
But it really hit home with me. She said, and when I finally let go, it made me realize I'm capable of great change. And we're going to come back to that quote in a moment. But I wanted to just ask, because we've talked about this, Drew, idea of not being able to stop somehow. And I want to just share something, because I'm going to really pour out my heart on the table, because for me, it has been such an astonishing life change at 50, for crying out loud. I've been drinking for, I don't know, 20, 30, 32, 3 years. And I think that for me, it's just an opportunity to be really honest about that, because if anybody's listening and that they think, oh, okay, I can relate to that. I think that's where we need to be today. But I can recall an incident, and this is my question. I can recall an incident. I just finished a shift on XFM. I used to be a radio DJ in the evening, and I was driving home, and I got into the habit of drinking alone, but going to get a miniature of vodka. Right? And I'd only buy miniatures, because if I bought the bottle, I know that I'd drink too much. Yeah. So I'd buy the small bottles. And the guy would always say to me, listen, why don't you just buy a litre? And I'd be like, well, because if I have a litre, there's no stop. So I'd buy the small bottles. And I really, as I was driving to the off license, I said to myself, Trudy, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just don't drink today. And I couldn't turn the steering wheel. I couldn't not go. And I was definitely not in control of that decision. And I got the vodka and I took it home. But I was very aware of the fact that I wasn't in control of making that decision, that something was driving me that was beyond just me. Have there ever been occasions when you felt like that?
Me, yes, definitely. I mean, I sometimes said, today I'm not drinking. And I always I drank red wine. So not vodka or anything, red wine. And like, I would say today I'm definitely not drinking. And there comes 9 p.m., 10 p.m., and I know the bottle shop around the corner is still open, and I have to go. And I get that bottle of wine.
This is it.
Yes.
This is it.
Yeah.
I never experienced that. I think I would rather just tell myself, don't get drunk tonight. Don't get drunk tonight. Like if I go out and I already plan on going out. So I would almost rather want to tell myself, compose yourself. Only have 2 drinks and then the end of the night, no. So like I said, I never drank on my own. So it's not something that I did. But my problem was definitely how I handled it once I was out and drinking. Especially if everyone else around you is drinking. Because the thing is, I know I can't handle my alcohol. I think some people can honestly handle it a bit better, even if they are drinking a lot. I can't. You see it in my face. My face almost becomes paralyzed. So I become very messy and sloppy. So that's also part of the reason why I had to stop, because I just didn't want to look like that anymore in public.
That's a good reason.
That's a good motivator.
That works as well.
Believe me, if you knew me while I was drinking, everyone would say that.
But I want to touch, I think I want to ask you, Therese, because this leads me on to the fact that once we, like you've said, once we've stopped drinking, you kind of look back at the benefits of not drinking. And now you're in a phase at the moment where you're not drinking, and that sober curious is sober and curious.
Doing the SWOT analysis at the moment.
And doing the SWOT analysis, exactly. But because you're not drinking, because you can't drink right now, what are the benefits for you? What have you seen as the benefits?
No, actually, one of the realizations was that actually I realized I can do without a glass of wine like 2-3 times a week during like the days are still stressful, right? So like having kids, Melissa would definitely know this. Like every night you're tired and exhausted and you just want to go to sleep and unwind. But I've managed to unwind without having that glass of wine. And so I asked myself, like, why was I having that glass of wine? I think for me, it's more difficult to see how I can do that when I'm in a social setting rather than when I'm at home. Because I think when I'm at home, it's like, I think I can do it, like not drinking wine, like after having dinner, for instance. But being in a social setting is much more difficult because you have all the pressures. So like even if I'm at a family dinner with the extended family, like everyone's like, no, pour yourself a glass of wine. You have to like cheer for good health and this sort of thing. So it's like everyone's putting pressure on you. No, you cannot do cheers with water. You cannot do this. It's like you have to. It's like it's real, right? They still pour me wine in my glass, even though they know I'm not going to drink it. So it's like it's society. Like it's
Where does that come from?
Because it's so normalized, I think.
exactly.
So, and that's the way people feel like they can, almost socialize.
Bond. I think it's the
It's
bonding
a
element.
bonding way as well. And that's why it makes you feel so guilty when you have to say no to that, because they think you might not be as much fun, or you know what I mean? Like I remember the very first time when I went to a social gathering and I said I wasn't drinking, I felt like I needed an excuse. And I said to them, oh no, I'm on medication right now. I can't take it. I can't drink for a week. And I thought to myself, why did I say that? Because I'm not on any medication. And then after that, I started just telling people I stopped drinking. They would ask me why. And then I would just plainly say, for my health. That's it. I don't need to explain anything. And people also don't really ask anymore. You get some people who are quite pushy, but for the most part.
Why are people pushy? I don't understand that.
I would say it has to do with bonding, because like people go to dinner or to lunch and like they need alcohol to bond apart from food. At least in the society we live in, it feels like that, right? It's like you cannot have like just order sparkling or still water. It's like you have to order water and wine.
I think it's also
water
because it
and
makes
beer.
people think they can be more comfortable, like with themselves and with you. So if you are going to say that you are not drinking and they want to drink, they might feel a little bit awkward or less than because they are the ones that's drinking.
I mean, it takes away inhibitions. So I guess if you're usually a shy person, you become more of an extrovert. And if you're a person who usually keeps things to themselves, you might share yourself more. You become more vulnerable. And I guess that leads to that sort of like group behavior, because if everybody's vulnerable and you're the one not drinking, they're afraid that you're gonna be not as vulnerable. So you're a threat, because if everybody's vulnerable and one person is not, it almost feels like someone is watching from the outside.
Yeah, it's true.
I find that really fascinating. I also find it has been a challenge, because I remember when I stopped drinking and I turned around to everybody and said, I'm not drinking. And for me, it's like no big deal. Really, it's not a big deal. I do not have a thing against alcohol at all. And just as the quote said, I just know right now, for me right now, that I am better without alcohol. But I'll buy my husband a bottle of wine and I'll be happy to be around my friends who are drinking. And I'm just like, I'm not drinking. It's all good with that. But I find that idea of pushing alcohol, I'm trying to think back to see whether I would have done that on somebody else, because I can remember when I first started, when I first came out and said I wasn't drinking, a friend of mine said to me, oh, but why? I mean, I've been a big drinker, so people were pretty, used to me knocking back the whiskeys. We'd have whiskey nights and sit there and we'd all bring bottles of, really nice whiskey or red wine or whatever it was. And people were used to me as a drinker. And when I said I wasn't drinking, I know one friend of mine turned around and said, well, why? And I actually had to turn around and I used the excuse, I'm just not drinking at the moment, and because of training and so on, and still pushing, no one won't hurt. And the only excuse I could find was, listen, mate, I come from generations of alcoholics, and actually I'm trying to avoid that right now. So can we? And bam, that killed the conversation, and they killed everything in the room. But why? I mean, that's the truth. I come from generations of alcoholics, and we'll come to that later. But it does feel like you have to sometimes, isn't it true? You have to go to extremes to explain. And I'm not judging anyone else.
I
I'm
think
not
I would have,
judging you.
if I was the one drinking, I think I would be the one asking why you're not drinking, to be honest. I think I would be that person because I remember how it made me like how I used to feel when someone said, no, I'm not drinking tonight. I would feel like you have to have a good time with us. And the only way you can have that is with drinking. And I used to be like that. I would want to encourage others to drink with me
Most
because
probably I would too.
yes,
It's like,
because I want you to be just as drunk as me. Like, I would definitely have been that person
like everyone
Only
needs
now-
to be at the same
at the same level.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get
Now
that.
on the flip side, I'm looking at it and I'm like, it's not really great. But yes, I would definitely have been like that.
It's interesting because for me, it almost looks like us, me and Trudy, we were kind of drinking for ourselves.
Yeah.
Like we're just drinking because we don't want to like deal or we want to be drunk. And you guys are drinking because you want to belong, sort of. Like you want to be in the crowd and you want to have fun and you want to be part of this social
definitely
activity
am.
that's going on.
Yes.
Like for me, to be honest, and this is really funny. I mean, I've been drinking for, I don't know, 20 years of my life or something. I never threw up from alcohol because I can actually control myself that I don't go over that limit. Like I can drink a lot, but I know when it's enough and when I had too much and when I go home and have my water and go to sleep. I was always that person. So for me, the drinking was more like, of course, I can drink a lot. I could, now obviously not, but I could drink a lot, but I knew when I had enough.
I
Because-
had that fear. I had that fear of getting to the point where I was coming across
Yeah.
as drunk. And I would be like, oh, Trudy, that's not a good thing. I mean, I would drink a lot.
I would drink a lot.
Yeah, but I'd be like, no, Trude's okay. Now if I heard myself slurring a word, I'd be like, okay, now stop, switch.
Water.
I
and
didn't
then
have
home.
that.
But my,
I didn't have that.
but my fear wasn't that. My fear was actually the drinking on my own.
Yeah,
That's when I was in the danger zone.
yeah. I get that.
definitely.
That's interesting, huh?
Because no one's watching, right? So
And
like
you're not
you're more-
talking to
you-
anyone, so
yeah.
you don't know where it's
It's
it's harder
stop.
to
It's
tell where the limit
plainly
is.
for yourself.
Also
Yeah.
because
You're
you can't
only-
sit with yourself. So you
You
can't
are
sit with
sitting
yourself.
with yourself.
But
in
you
that-
can't sit with yourself sober. I mean, you
Exactly.
can't sit with your own feelings. So I can understand why
Yeah.
that is something that is concerning as well, because I'm very comfortable sitting with myself and with my own feelings. I am uncomfortable, or I used to be uncomfortable when you had to go and put me in a group of people, because people might not believe it, but I definitely think I am kind of an introvert.
Don't believe it.
I am when I'm comfortable.
Anyone at the
Don't
table?
believe it.
Oh, we're not buying that, Melissa. We're totally not buying
when
that.
I get comfortable with you, or if I can
You're an
read that you are,
extroverted introvert.
Maybe,
With
maybe.
the right people, you're an extrovert. Otherwise, you're an introvert.
if I can see that, like today I only met you, but I can immediately see that you are a warm, open person, then I will.
Yes.
But otherwise, I'll close
Yeah.
up. So my point is, when I am in a group of people where I'm not kind of sure how to read the room, or if I feel uncomfortable, I've been to events where I would be the first one to arrive. Oh my goodness, I definitely want to have a glass of wine and just knock it back because it makes me feel uncomfortable. So
inhibitions kick in that situation. So it's
Yes.
like you need to get control of yourself.
Yeah.
I understand that situation.
Yes.
Like I've been to weddings of best friends and I like didn't have a reason not to drink and didn't actually drink. So like I just had like one gin and tonic and I've had a blast. So then like instances like this make me realize like, well, I've lived through a wedding. I've had fun. Everyone thought I was drunk because I was like too much.
Having a good time, yeah.
Having a good time.
Yeah.
And actually, I wasn't drunk, but everyone was telling me like, no, you were definitely drunk. And I'm like, no, I wasn't drunk. I just had 1-2
Having a good
drinks.
time.
So yeah, we're having a good time.
But the thing is, what I find so funny is all of these years that I've been doing that, I did that to kind of build up some confidence, you know, being able to talk to people, being fun. And I wish I could just look at myself from the outside and be like, that's the exact opposite of what you are doing right now. Because I have actually more confidence now to talk to people. I have better and open conversations. I can keep conversations. Before, I wouldn't be able to do that. I can do that now because I'm sober and I'm more present.
See, leads me nicely into the question that I just started with Therese a minute ago, which is, what are the benefits? What have you found to be the benefits? So that's obviously one. For me, I actually didn't realize how impactful alcohol was for me until I stopped drinking. And the one thing I noticed was how much more room I had in my head. I couldn't believe how much I thought about drinking. Because of training, I had to make sure that I could run the next day. So, okay, am I going to drink on this day? And if I'm going to drink on this day, how much can I drink before I have to then, because I'm going to be running the next day, or I don't drink that day. And if I don't drink that day, what day am I going to be drinking? And on a drinking day, when is it okay for me to start drinking? Because I can drink on this day. So it'd be like, okay, it's past midday. I don't know if anybody else in their culture has the whole past midday thing. It's fine to drink past midday. And so, okay, because I can drink past midday, but then I've got to go to this meeting, so I can't drink. I was surprised, really surprised. That was the one big thing that I noticed, how much more room there is in my head to think about other things, and how much I was thinking about alcohol. I mean, that's nuts. But you're saying that it makes you a better person, a more sociable person.
I just think that I am a better person in social situations now because I'm more present, and quite frankly, I'm not making an ass out of myself. So, because I really believe that is what I did. But there's obviously so many other benefits as well. I do not struggle with anxiety the way I used to, because the anxiety is the thing that, honestly, that is what killed me. All the other things are secondary. The anxiety is what really got to me, because my mental health suffered because of it. It really did. I can remember going to the doctor's house on a Sunday morning at 7 a.m., I think it was, and I sat on the steps there and I said to her, like, I am so anxious. I don't know what to do. And one of the first things she told me was, alcohol, caffeine, all of that, that's the stuff that you need to cut out. So, and then obviously other couple of things as well. But I mean, that was my main reason for why I was feeling so anxious, because of alcohol. And I mean, like I said, I didn't drink often and I didn't drink a lot. When I drank a lot, but it would be maybe once a week, maybe on a Saturday. But it affected my mind hugely. And then there's obviously, like, just the health benefits, like you lose a little bit of weight or your skin becomes clearer, because alcohol inflames your whole body. It's basically poison. So there's a lot of even joint pain. I used to have joint pain because I drank a lot of white wine. I don't have that anymore. So there's a lot of benefits that comes from it.
Yeah, for me, I think one big one was that I don't experience shame anymore. Like, when you're...
The day after.
Yeah,
shame.
oh my God. Like the shame and the guilt. Like, why did I do this to myself? Like, you would really party and then you see a photo of yourself the next day and you're like, wow, this is me. Oh my God. Like, and you remember what you said and what you did. And maybe you made out with someone and you're like, oh my God, this is horrible. It didn't cause me anxiety, but it caused me shame.
Yeah.
And shame for me is an absolutely horrible feeling.
Yeah.
Really, really horrible.
What I would add as a benefit, at least in my SWOT analysis, would be not having arguments after drinking with close relatives, because it's like, it happens. Like, you end up fighting with your husband, fighting with your friend. You end up fighting at some point. Like, at least for me, whenever I cross the line of drinking too much, I start annoying people. So it's like, it's like it doesn't happen often, but when it happens, it's like I'm all out. So yeah, I will definitely be annoying people.
Does that mean that all your relatives and family are going to be watching this show saying, please never drink again?
I'm not sure.
but that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, again, if your family, if the people that are around you are drinking, they're going to be also in that same state.
Exactly. Exactly.
And if they're not drinking, probably a little bit irritated as well. Any other benefits? I'm really interested.
I feel like, I mean, there's just benefits all around. I mean, have you ever thought about like feeling guilty or bad that you went out the night before and that you drank? Obviously, I think most of us felt like that. Have you ever felt guilty or bad that you stayed in and you didn't drink? No, I think everyone would be like,
Welcome to Maison Perrier. Discover Maison Perrier Chic and enjoy our new non-alcoholic cocktail range. Maison Perrier. Enjoy our new sophisticated mocktails.
Durkos, recommended by dermatologists. Anti-hair loss protocol. A concentration of aminexil in a scalp treatment to reduce hair loss by 29%. And in a stimulating shampoo to boost volume by 48%. A potent synergy for hair 3 times stronger. Anti-hair loss protocol. By Durkos, the dermatological scalp and hair expert.
I have to say, and I don't know if May, you can relate, but I've always been, this has not been the only substance that I've enjoyed. I have had periods in my life where I have smoked 30 a day, where I've been hooked on prescription medication, hooked on narcotics, and all of that, you name it, I've given it a good go. Yeah. But I think first of all, because with alcohol, if you go into an off license to buy alcohol, they're not going to necessarily shame you or think that something's wrong. They're going to say, oh, she's going to have a good night tonight or whatever. But I think I've woken up, like you say, feeling embarrassed at myself, even when I've drank by myself. I've walked into the kitchen and gone, I did not, that was the whole thing for me, buying a bottle of spirit. Where do you measure where you stop? And you're just sitting there, I can remember having nights, and I'm really pouring out my heart, but I can remember having nights when, I was having a hard time, things were pretty tough. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, it's midnight, I could probably have one more. And I've probably drunk a third of a bottle of vodka already, because whatever's happening in my life has not been particularly great at that time. I could probably drink one more. And then you have the one more, and then that extra one. And then you're looking at 2:00 in the morning and you're thinking, I really should go to bed. But now I've wrecked. Have you ever had that? Where you think, well, I've wrecked the next day, so I might as well just keep going.
I think I've had like that with the diet. Like
Right, okay. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where you think that
I definitely think I've done that when I was younger, yes, for sure. So you would almost go out till like 2:00 or whatnot, and then you would be like, oh, well, the next day is messed up anyway, so we might as well push it till a bit later. Yeah, I definitely had that as well, but I wouldn't say like recently since I've become a mom, but yeah, a couple of years ago, yes.
I want to ask a question, because we're all sitting at the table drinking a very nice non-alcoholic cocktail, and I'm going to ask about, and it might be a bit different for you, Therese, because of your circumstances, but how easy was it when you chose not to drink? And again, I'm going to put myself in the picture there. I've just mentioned I've had a lot of addictions, or been hooked on this or indulged in that. But when I make up my mind, I make up my mind. I am stubborn, really stubborn. And I think I saw this call from Danae, who said, who's with me? I'm going to stop drinking until November. And I was like umming and ahhing. And then we had that lunch and I said, okay, Trudy, you have to do this. You have to do this today. You've got to do it now. That's it. Stop drinking. And once I made that choice, I have to be really honest, it has been so easy. So easy. There was only one occasion that I can recall in the last, 8 months, where I've said, I really want to drink. And that was when there was a bit of a crisis going on, and it passed. Half an hour later, it passed. But once I made the choice, I really, I still love the smell of a great glass of wine. I'll take my husband's glass of wine, I'll smell it. Oh, that's really nice. But I won't drink it, and I'm fine with that. Has it been easy? Was it easy? Has it been easy?
I think it depends why you're doing it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But for sure, the first few days will be the most difficult because you still haven't got used to a new routine, I would say. But then once you get a grasp of it, it's like, I'm okay with it, not having...
Becomes your normal.
Exactly. It's like, my day doesn't include alcohol at the moment, so, and I'm fine with that. But in the very early stages, it was quite, not shocking, but quite difficult. Not shocking.
I'm like you. Once I make the decision, that's it. And I stick. I have a lot of discipline when it comes to anything in my life. Anything. Like, if I set my mind to it, I will do it. And I will stick. Unless I logically change my mind onto something new, and then I can stick to that.
Yeah. I get you.
Yeah, with drinking, I don't think I will change my mind again. No.
I actually didn't intend to stop. I thought of it as being maybe something that I would do for 1 month. So what basically changed my whole mind is I started reading this book. And this book was of Alan Carr. I don't know if you...
Yeah. Easy Way to Stop Smoking.
Yeah, so his was, for the drinking one, it was Easy Way to Control Your Drinking.
Okay.
So that title kind of got my attention because I was like, I just want to control my drinking. I don't want to stop. And apparently, like in the book, he says that was his little hook to get you in, but he wants you to stop.
Yeah.
And
Interesting. Yeah.
after I read that whole book, I was just like, okay, I'm done. Halfway through the book, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this for a month. At the end of the book, I said to myself, I'm not ever drinking again.
Why? What did he say?
I mean, okay, this is 4 years ago, so it is a while ago, but he breaks it down for you to basically understand exactly why you are drinking, what alcohol is, why society drinks, and why you should stop. So obviously it's very in depth, but he really explains everything for you to understand that this is not something that you should be putting in your body. It is basically poison. And we are conditioned to start liking the taste after a while. Like the first time you tasted a drink, did you like it? You probably spat it out when you were... You were probably very young.
It was Baby Sham.
Baby Sham, what's that?
What is it?
Oh, wow. Does no one at the table... Does no one...
It's Baby Sham.
It sounds horrible.
Yeah.
No, Baby Sham was...
Why does it have the word baby in
Yeah,
it? It's
that's
quite
disturbing.
It's a
Even
baby.
sham.
It's a baby version of champagne.
Oh, you could have
Very,
just said
very
that.
sweet. No, it's called Baby Sham. It's actually called Baby Sham.
okay.
Very, very sweet, tiny, tiny bottles. I think I was 14 years old, and my best friend Claire managed to get some from the off license, and we didn't have a bottle opener, so we opened it with a fork, and that didn't work out so well. Baby Sham everywhere, but it was very, very sweet, and I remember.
So it was actually nice. Ish.
I don't remember liking it. I mean, I would really challenge anyone to like Baby Sham. It really is a bit...
Yeah.
but it wasn't full on alcohol.
Because I truly believe that we probably all conditioned to start liking alcohol at a certain point. Like it's an acquired taste, you know. In the beginning, you're not going to like it. And then slowly but surely, you start liking it. And then it's something that you really want.
But isn't that, and I'm going to ask you, mate, because you and I have both been heavy smokers. Isn't that the same with nicotine? It's the same as
it is.
smoking.
It
is.
I mean, there is nothing, sorry, if you're a smoker, but there's nothing nice about smoking. I mean, it smells disgusting, it tastes disgusting, and if you have, but I smoked for 10 years, 30 a day.
Yeah.
And it was the hit that I was after.
Yeah.
It was the effect. Have you smoked?
No, never.
I also did for many years. I stopped before I had my kids.
I didn't know that.
No, but I was a social smoker.
Oh.
Everything I did socially.
It's almost like second level
Yeah.
addict. We're like,
We're like, we're the pros.
I'm the pansy.
We've got a grade here, you know what I'm saying? Grading around the table. No, I was full on.
I was full on.
I was in the snow, you know, freezing my butt off,
Yes.
minus 10 degrees, still having a cigarette on my
Yes.
doorstep because I wasn't allowed to smoke in my house kind of smoker. Really
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that, like,
Yeah.
you know, beyond social.
Yeah.
But if you know, even if you, like you're saying about the alcohol, if you were to take a cigarette now, you'd question what on earth.
Yeah, exactly.
Why would I do this to
Yeah.
myself? But you get the hit. And it's the hit that gets you, right? Which is what you're talking about. Alcohol. There has
But
to
there's
be
only
something
that
beyond.
tiny hit that I was after. So I only liked that few minutes of being tipsy. I did not like, and obviously, how long does it last to be tipsy? You like tipsy would last like a half an hour, maybe an hour if you're lucky, and then bam, drunk. So I only like that tipsy part, but you can't keep that level for very long until you get drunk. So that's the only hit that I was after.
Wow.
And I couldn't get there for very long. So
I want to ask a question, and it's probably for a second. Well, maybe you guys have thoughts on this. May, I want to go back to the show that I did with you before, because we've just talked right there as Melissa was speaking. We've talked about the fact that we had a very different relationship. We're the pros over here. But I know that from the show that we had before on addiction, you and I really bonded over something, and that is, it was said at the table that whilst compulsive personalities don't exist, there is an alcoholic gene. And I remember, I think it was Anna Maria Vella said that alcoholism is genetic, that it is generational. It doesn't mean to say if it's in your family, you're going to be alcoholic, but you have a predisposition, you have a weakness to it. And that if everything comes together, it's like the perfect storm. If everything comes together, then there's a good chance that it might happen to you. And she talked about the fact that there was genetically in her family, there was diabetes. But of the 5 children, only one of the children were diabetic because the others had safeguarded them against diabetes. And the same, she related that to alcoholism. And I know that in my family, we have generational alcoholism for many generations. And I think that's probably where the wake-up call was with you.
in my family.
Really?
Yes. Same in my family. Also for generations back.
Wow.
Yeah. No, it's the same.
And you were aware of this before?
I've been aware of it my whole life. Not my parents, though. But
Even mine. My parents, not at all. But my uncle, grandparents,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. And I think that's what scared me when I met you for lunch. I just thought I had visions. I could see what had happened to generations before happening to me. And that's where I said, okay, this has got to stop.
Yeah.
But your story is similar, no?
Yeah, I have a lot of heavy drinkers in my family, including my dad. I mean, I wouldn't say he's an alcoholic. He doesn't take the bottle in the morning, but Feierabend beer, and then in the weekend, and like every day something. Maybe nowadays less. He's getting a bit older, but when we were young, there was a lot of alcohol, definitely. The thing with genetics, though, is that you might have a predisposition by means of having a gene or something, but you still have control whether it will be switched on or switched off, which comes from the environment. So just because you have a gene doesn't mean you're gonna be suffering from whatever, because that works with all genetics like that. But the thing is, when we speak about something that is generational, it's also the habits. So as children, we learn by what we see, by what we witness. So if we witness a lot of drinking around us, we consider it normal and we integrate that. And that's then, of course, if you have the gene and you have that environment, then it's much more likely that you go down that road as well.
And that's what you were saying on the previous show about addiction, that you grew up with that. You grew up with seeing that.
Yes, my parents were smoking, drinking, it was just there since I was born. I think my mom even smoked when she was pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you and I have grown up with, and I'm going to ask you, Therese, as well, but you and I have grown up with parents who don't drink. I mean, in my family for sure. And I've always been curious about this because my parents did not drink. They didn't drink, and we were not allowed alcohol in the house until the day that we all left. And then they just started ordering cases of wine.
Oh,
yeah.
no, I
really
did grow
interesting.
up with my dad. No, my dad is an avid wine drinker and my mom as well, but controlled and also not during the week really, you know. So when you go out for dinner and, you know, on during Sunday lunch or something like that. But it was always very controlled. And so I didn't grow up with this picture of, you know, parents being drunk or anything like that. And I know also my mom's parents also didn't drink at all. So but then I mean the rest of the family had a very big problem. So yeah.
No, I think for me it's similar. So like my parents at home used to drink maybe a glass of wine with their lunch or dinner on weekends or when we go out, but nothing out of the ordinary, like drinking bottles of wine or other liquor. I think for me it was the smoking, and I think that's why I never smoked, because they used to smoke so much. I used to hate it. And I said, I'm never going to pick up a cigarette in my life. And it's like not even peer pressure managed to do it. You know, it's like when you're a teenager, like everyone around you is smoking. And I'm like, no, I'm not smoking. But with alcohol, it was different because I think it was, for me, it was like, I'm trying it out. Everyone else is doing it. It's just something everyone does. And that's it. So no, I don't think I had an environment which could swing me either side or the other. I have actually family members who don't drink, like in the extended family circle. So possibly they are those who are influencing me now to actually not drink anymore.
But can you see as well, I mean, just because you're sitting in a very different place, you're actually saying, okay, I'm doing the SWOT analysis. Maybe I will drink again, maybe I won't. But where are you saying that you're leaning towards not drinking? But would you say that that's just because of health reasons, or are there any other elements at play? Really, what is going on in your head? Where are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats coming from?
I think maybe it's, okay, so all the health benefits we've mentioned and just questioning why society accepts alcohol and not other drugs, right? Because like if you read the news, it's like no one ever says, why are people drinking so much? It's like, why are people doing drugs? It's not like alcohol is never in the news. It's like only in the news when there's a traffic accident and the person driving behind the wheel was drunk or had high alcohol levels. I think it's more, possibly it has to do with age, right? Maybe like if I was an 18-year-old at this point, I wouldn't be doing this, wouldn't have had these thoughts. But it's like, I ask myself, why should I drink if like I can be fun without drinking? So why am I drinking?
It's really interesting that you mentioned the age, because that statistic that 59% of Gen Zs in the UK have saying that they haven't drunk for 12 months. So is there a cultural shift? Is this us older farts are the ones that have been drinking and that the young people are getting their heads around not drinking? Or is it still...
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe if
But I do also think that there's so much more information out there nowadays for us to actually be clued up with, you know, exactly what alcohol is, what it does to people. You see more things about people being under the influence on news and reels, and you see how bad it is for you. So I definitely think that there is more information in our face nowadays of what alcohol can actually do to your body. And people are realizing as well that it's poison, which it essentially is. So I think there is more of a awakening.
And for us, at least, we're all of the same age.
you can stay.
Yeah, but for us, right, it's like you only saw your parents drinking. Like it's like you used to see your community was very small. So like it was okay to drink, so you could drink as well. And we didn't ask our parents like, is alcohol good for you or is it bad for you? It's like you
No, it's
see
just
it
what you
and you
do.
do it,
Yeah.
right? And there is much more information out there, and I think the younger generation, they have more options on what to do in terms of bonding, right? So possibly they would prefer to go on do some outdoor activity rather than go out to dinner or just having drinks. Possibly it could be a cost issue as well, right? So, I think when we were young, we could get drinks for a much cheaper.
Much cheaper, yeah. But I still don't have. I still didn't have money for it. I would buy. We used to call it a popsuck. Popsuck is like the bags of wine.
They're really cheap.
Yeah, box wine, and we would drink that. That's what made us so sick. So I also couldn't afford it, but it was definitely cheaper back then. But I think it's all relative as well. So, but yes.
I think it's really interesting that there seems to be a movement amongst young people not to drink as much as we obviously did.
I think it's because there's also such a massive health boom the last decade. People are more interested in health and wellness than years before. I definitely think that's part of the reason.
Periods are part of the game, but they don't have to throw you off your game. Try new Always Platinum for up to 100% leak protection, faster absorption, dry feel, and it's more cushiony, so you can focus on your game. It's a new Period, always.
Is it that? I'm just going to
I'm
throw
not saying
something
that's the
onto
only reason.
No, but I'm also wondering, I'm just going to be a tiny bit skeptical here and just say, but it would seem that drugs is on the increase.
You think? I mean, I don't know, but
Statistically, there's a rise in narcotics.
Could be just a shift
might
from
be a
alcohol
shift,
to
maybe.
from one drug to another. Actually.
Yes, but which leads me to that point that if alcohol was to come on the market today, if alcohol was to as a new substance, probably it would not be legalized because
Exactly.
we're sitting at the table talking about all these effects that alcohol has had on us and the health effects and the health effects and everything else. And it's the same as cigarettes. If cigarettes was to come along today and to be introduced to the market, we'd all go, oh no, I don't think so. That's not right. But it's that social acceptance and that social, as we talked about, relaxing and that social integration and so on and so forth. Is that right?
Yeah, I was also thinking that maybe people our age, there's also this movement going on, like much more information online. With the internet, of course, I think everything changed. You have much more information ready at your hands.
Yeah.
And also with pop psychology, like I'm sure everybody is following some sort of like coach or psychologist or something. And it's this movement of like not doing it like your parents. Like, let's heal, let's not do these same mistakes. Let's choose more what we want to do in life. And I think with that movement and with these choices often comes the choice not to drink and not to engage in these destructive behaviors and rather choose something that is more healthy in ways of dealing. And I think that's also a big thing that is going on right now.
yeah.
And the younger generations that grow up with social media, they grow up with this. They grow up with having this information ready at the hand, like this is unhealthy and this is healthy coping. Like sometimes I talk to 20-year-olds and I'm like, wow, like I wish I was that enlightened at 20. I was like, I literally felt like a 16-year-old in a taller body and like with no other mindset than like a 16-year-old at age 20. And then there's these 20-year-olds like being like so enlightened, and like I'm like, what? So it's like it must be coming from somewhere. I think it's
Definitely, I agree.
all this information, and then they grew up with these movements, you know, the LGBTQ plus and everything. They grew up having more rights already because these were fought for earlier, so they don't have to suffer that much, or maybe suffer in a different way. But like, I grew up in the 90s when models were skeletons, you know. Nowadays you have all these bootylicious girls and bikinis for all sizes, and it's like, it's different. I think people are much more
The culture of accepting
culture
ourselves
of
the way we
acceptance
are.
and everything. Yeah, this movement of acceptance and healing. So we grew up thinking we have to be stick thin. It's all about looks for girls. You just have to look good and you get the cool guys, and that's the achievement of life. And then you become a mom and you find a guy, and that's it, you know. And that was also in the movies. That was propagated in the movies. And I said that last time when we met for the addiction show. Back in the 90s, there was much more alcohol in the movies as well than nowadays. So it was like Bridget Jones. I use that example as well. Like Bridget Jones going through a breakup, opens the bottles of wine, you know, opens the ice cream, opens the cigarettes, and there she goes on the sofa, like vegging out. You don't see that anymore.
Can I just say, mate, you did wreck Bridget Jones for me. I watched it recently and I just kept thinking of you and questioning it. I was like, she's smoking, she's drinking, she's eating the ice. And I'm just like, that's in my head now. Yeah. But it's true. Go back and watch Bridget Jones and it's
a different culture now. I think it's much more like aware of these things. And we weren't, I didn't grow up with this awareness. So yeah, it was normal to abuse of it. Everybody was. So we were, until we found that sort of, let's say, a bit of enlightenment and say, okay, I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to do that anymore. But until you reach that point, you literally keep running in that hamster wheel. You're like, yeah, everybody's doing it, I'm just going to do it. Everybody's doing that, I'm just going to do that. And then you're like, wow, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And these younger people probably don't have this. They are like, yeah, I don't have to do that. They probably have other things though, so...
You know what's extraordinary, though? Just as you were talking, it came to me. I was sort of sitting here thinking about this. Each of us at the table have a different reason and motivation for drinking, whether it be socially wanting to be more comfortable and accepted and maybe overcoming some sort of introversion, whether it be being with family and friends, and family and friends are saying, hey, listen, drink, or just having that relaxing drink at the end of the day, and now questioning, well, actually, I can relax without it. Or maybe more in our instances, I know I'm going to speak for myself, but using alcohol as a tool to help me bypass my emotions. And that's where I think that's on that day, that back in July, that I realized that's exactly what I was doing. I was bypassing my emotions, which I needed. I was in a really crappy place. And instead of sitting with it and working it out, I just wanted to quick fix that by just not feeling anything and getting numb. And I know that's how it was for me. And it's interesting that you're sitting there, May, and saying that perhaps younger people are not learning to bypass or to use alcohol as a crutch. But for somebody who's maybe our age and is thinking about lessening the alcohol, or doing a SWOT analysis on alcohol. I think we should have a paper afterwards. I think Teresa needs to write a paper and we'll share it. Or abstaining, or maybe just lessening, or, making life choices. What would you ladies say are just points to watch out for? And the reason I mention this is I think I became very aware at Christmas, and I should say New Year's, when I was with my husband and friends celebrating. And I was having a great time. I didn't feel like I wanted to drink, but suddenly everyone around me is really quite drunk. Bottles of champagne, bottles of wine, Prosecco, everything. And I'll be honest with you, I felt very alone. I really felt alone because I wasn't drinking. And that comes all the way back, full circle to what you said right at the very beginning about that social acceptance and people wanting you to join them.
Yeah.
Well, it comes from the other side as well. You know, you're sitting on the outside of a club of drinkers. So I realized that what I need to do is if I'm out with people for however long I decide that I'm not going to drink for and other people are drinking, I need to not be drinking sparkling water because quite frankly, no one is going to get excited by sparkling water. And it really just drives everything home that you are the odd one out.
Yeah.
So if you had a piece of advice for anybody that's sitting here thinking, you know, maybe I'm interested, but I don't know, it's going to be tough.
Well, I definitely think that you should not put an end date or don't say, you know, I want to completely stop drinking and that is your plan. I think everything that you do is just do it one day at a time. See how it makes you feel because as time goes by, you are going to realize, oh my goodness, this is the best feeling ever and you wouldn't want to go back. So I definitely think you shouldn't put a date on it and also find ways that you can still make it pleasurable for yourself. Like you said, you don't want to drink sparkling water. Take a non-alcoholic beer. There's nothing wrong with a non-alcoholic beer. You know, these things don't taste the same, but it's just the placebo effect. It might make you feel a little bit more special as well if you have something in a nice cup or whatever the case might be. But I also do think that if you are in situations where you feel like you are annoyed with people getting over the top drunk and whatnot, there's a time to leave. Most of the time, drunk people don't know when to leave. So if you feel like you've had enough, you can leave by 10 and you can go home if you've had enough. I do that. I mean, when I get to certain parties, I have a really good time. But then I've got like a cutoff time where I feel like, okay, I think I've had enough now and I'm ready to go. You don't need to stick it out because people who are under the influence will always carry on much longer. So just know when to leave and you'll wake up the next morning feeling great and you can still go and do yoga or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, having a plan for the next morning could be a good, a good motivator.
Exactly.
Absolutely. For you, a piece of advice or something to be wary for anybody who's thinking about doing a SWOT analysis on not drinking. I'm sorry, I love that.
No, the question that keeps popping is why do we drink alcohol and like can we go without it? And I think the answer will be that yeah, we can live without it, but we will need to make, I think I would need to make some adjustments because it's quite an awkward situation being in a social event where you're the only one not drinking and the rest are.
In the beginning, sorry to interrupt, but in the beginning, yes, it is. But it becomes much easier, especially when people start knowing what your choices are. They won't even, it's like they will even, they will forget about it.
But then can I add to that? Honestly, you mentioned before we sat down for this show that the first time you and I met that you were actually quite drunk.
Yes.
I don't recall that at all. I just remember going, oh, she looks like quite a nice girl.
No, I was drunk.
Well, we were in the middle of COVID and sitting on different tables actually, so I probably wouldn't have known anyway. But your sobriety or you're not drinking is part of your identity, isn't it? It's part of you because I think of Melissa and I think of Melissa who's striving for a healthy life, but also has chosen not to drink. Would you say that it's part of your identity that you don't drink?
Mm-mm.
Ooh.
No, I don't think so. I think I'm just me. I don't think drinking should be anything that is connected to you or not. You know, I've chosen just to be me and to be a healthy version of me and to be a present me. So the drinking should definitely not define me whether I am drinking or not. So no, I don't think so.
That's interesting, huh? I like what you said.
Yeah,
you
I
said
think
drinking shouldn't define you either way.
Yeah.
It shouldn't, and that's for
Exactly.
anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense because it's like, if it's there and even if it's not, it shouldn't be what people know you for.
Yeah. It's just the choice that you make, but you are your own person. So I've just chosen to be without. And it's fine if other people don't choose to be without, but for me, that's my choice.
It's funny because I think when I was drinking, that was part of my identity.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
You see, we were both committed to the
Yes,
cause.
Yeah.
because I think for me, I had this image of myself that I'm this like, and this might sound so stupid now, but I had this image of myself that I'm this like suffering artist philosopher, you know, like Goethe, like Jim Morrison, you know, I need the alcohol. Like I'm there drinking my red wine, listening to records, you know, on a record player. I'm painting, I'm drawing, I'm writing my poetry. For me, it had to be with alcohol.
Yeah, I
Like
get it.
I couldn't do that without drinking. Like this was the persona that I was like living in for a long time.
Like Janis Joplin.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, right.
Janis Joplin or some stuff. So for me, it was a massive part of my identity. And I actually struggled for a long time, and I still struggle sometimes to be creative without alcohol. Or my creativity is different. Let's say it that way. I'm not that. And maybe what I was writing at that time was absolute shite, you know? And I'm just like, now I'm more mindful about what I'm writing. But like, for some reason, I have this image that like the stuff I put out there was better. Probably it wasn't.
It was absolute crap. You just didn't know it. I love that. But have you ever done that? I have sat up in my long back distance past. I was sat up with a bottle of whiskey or something, writing for hours and hours and hours.
Oh, you guys are the same.
Thinking it was brilliant, and then read back and gone, oh, bloody hell, I stayed up 3 hours writing that total and utter
The
shit.
last thing I thought of while drinking was writing.
Or painting, definitely not.
But it's so interesting.
But I think this is why that's the difference, I think. Like there's people, they drink to be social, and there's people that drink to deal with what is happening inside of them.
Yeah.
Like that could be like creativity, that could be emotions, that could be anything. And I am a very creative person. I've been very creative all my life. I've been writing all my life. I used to be like play the piano. I even gave concerts when I was a kid. Like I have a lot of creativity. But again, it was, I think, some educational mishap that I believed that I needed alcohol to be this like suffering artist type, which I don't. I can still be creative and not drink.
But don't you think that was a kind of a thing of the time as well, a thing of the
It
era?
was, yes.
Because a lot of, you'd see artists in the 90s, 80s, 90s that'd be on stage and they'd be like, you know, whatever. And you knew they were out of it one way or another. And that was glamorized.
Yes.
That was actually glamorized to be either stoned or drunk or whatever. And that's what we, like, going back to what you were saying before, that's what we saw in media. And that surprised me. That's why I kind of loved researching the list of celebrities who are now people that I really admire that just saying, nope, not going to do it. Absolutely not. And I've seen another way. And it's worth going and reading their stories because their awakening and where they came to is amazing. But it's almost like, it's really interesting. It's always like you and I had drinking with a purpose. We were purpose-driven drinkers.
Yeah.
There was a purpose to it, whereas in ourselves, whereas your purpose was to make you more sociable.
Yeah.
You guys are that side of the table. We're over here.
Yeah, this is more like a relational drinking. And for us, it was like relation with the self.
Yeah.
Like how can I process myself and my inner processes? Like how can I put my art out there? How can I live with myself? How can I be with myself?
How can I sit with myself as well?
Yeah.
I mean, sitting with myself has always been a challenging process because there's always been a lot to kind of go through and deal with. And I think sometimes that would be for me what I was trying to avoid. But also you talked about your identity. I started working in the alcohol industry when I first left university. The first job I went to I was a graphic designer for Seagram's, Diageo, Jameson Irish Whiskey, Guinness, Glenlivet, Glenfiddich. So I was learning about these hard liquors, and then Louis Roederer champagne and these events. And there was and our companies would take us out and we would have these huge drinking events. We'd go and I can remember we were working with Olmeca Tequila, and the Christmas party was you had a cup round your neck on a chain.
Oh.
And you couldn't put that cup down. You had to hold it. It had to be full, and you'd be like this. And there'd be girls going around just filling up your cup. And it was encouraged over and over again. Even in the workplace, I can remember Jameson Irish Whiskey asked us to come up with a signature drink. And then the advertising agency I was working for in London took us to the pub for 2 days. And for 2 days, all we did was drink Jameson Irish Whiskey and got paid for it. So culturally, it was, and I think this is where we've sort of come to. Culturally, things have shifted.
Yeah, for sure.
But coming back to my original question, May, what would you suggest to somebody who's thinking of either taking a SWOT analysis and embarking on analysing why and how, and maybe taking a new view of alcohol or abstaining completely? Because I think there's some things to be mindful of. And for me, definitely, being around other people drinking with sparkling water didn't work for me at New Year.
Yeah. I mean, I once stopped also for 1 year and 8 months. And I used to go to raves sober. Like I would literally just drink sparkling water, actually, with lemon. And I would have the time of my life. I can totally do that. Because for me, the drinking is not something I need to be social or to enjoy myself. Or, I mean, the thing is, I can go to a rave because at a rave, you're more on your own. Like you're just dancing there, you know, you're feeling the music. What I cannot do is go out and have a seated occasion with people who drink, because it gets incredibly boring for me. So I really rarely go out these days because I just can't listen to drunk conversations. They just bore me.
Yeah, I know.
I really
get that.
just, like you said earlier, like you feel a bit lonely.
Yeah.
I just cannot converse at that level. I then have to leave. Like it happened to me that I met some friends for lunch and they had some drinks, and I got so bored that I was actually zoning out. And I literally got up and I said, guys, I have to leave. I can't do this. And I left. I can't. So I think I can't give great advice for the social drinkers because I'm not a social drinker. But I can give advice to the passionate identity drinkers. The lost souls, the artists, musicians, great writers. I think what I can say to these people is remember your why. See that there is something beyond that identity, that you don't have to keep that identity. We change constantly. Our life always changes. We are allowed to change. You can change and still be a cool person. You can still be a writer and not drink. You know, it takes some time to find your groove. It took me some time to find my groove in this. But I'm very creative again in my own way, and it's a bit of a different way. So I would say have the discipline to explore other areas of yourself. And really try it out before switching back. Like really give yourself that time and space to play with some different parts of your being and identity. And I think it can be very rewarding.
I think that's well said.
Absolutely. I agree. So you said something, and while these ladies are thinking about what they want to say to close, I just want to come back to something that you said, which was the why. And it made me think, because 9 out of 10 times I could drink socially, not a problem whatsoever. 9 out of 10 times, have a glass of wine, put it down, go on. Everything was in perspective. But that one time, and I've explained this to the friend that kept pushing the alcohol on me, that one time was the why. And the why was utterly to escape realism, to be in a different place. And that one time out of the 10 was the dangerous occurrence, not the other 9. The other 9 was perfectly fine, but that one time, and it always happened. And that one time was the one thing that made me wake up and realizing why I was doing it. So Therese, your findings, your words of wisdom to finish the show.
No, I would say the why is important. And I think we have to accept that alcohol is also a drug. So, like, if I'm against all other drugs personally, right? Like, I try not to have medication because it's a drug. So, as much as possible, I try to do that. I don't do any other drugs. So, why am I drinking alcohol? So, that is the why I need to tackle when I get home and in the coming weeks. And I think what possibly people like me who are social drinkers, right, would need to assess, and that's what I will be doing is we've been accustomed to this. We've grown up in households where the adults drink wine with their lunches. So we should ask ourselves whether we want this to be what we want for the next generation as well, right? Now that we have children in our own homes. Like, do I want my children to see me drinking wine every time I have lunch or dinner with them? Or it's fine if I'm just having water with lemon? So, yeah, I have got a lot to think about, but...
That's really interesting. That is really interesting about the example we lead to others. And I think, we've spoken about this and we've spoken about it at this table. And I think that's a really important point.
Yeah.
Melissa, this show is because of you. So I'm going to let you close the show with your final thoughts.
Okay, so for many years, I felt like I just need a sign. Give me a sign. I need a sign. And if I can get that sign to stop drinking, I'll stop drinking. So I will close the show by saying, if you are looking for a sign, this is your sign.
Wow.
Ooh.
Cheers to that. You've got an empty glass.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Mine is
Here's to the
empty.
sign.
Cheers.
That was really good. Thank you.